you have a blend of virtues and flaws. So your character is the makeup of that blend of virtues and flaws that your soul wears as it presents itself to the world.
Wow.
And so I picked the 10 most common character flaws and we played off on that. And I used patient vignettes. But shortly after the book was published, I developed a blood clot, and then I had some other things happen, and I finally left practice for a period of years, and then finally it ended up where I got my leg amputated, and I went into sleep medicine after that, and so I started. I was writing. But I started writing, since I didn't have patient vignettes, started writing with animal themes because, Aesop's fables, you can teach character development, you can teach virtue through the transformation in a story told by an animal, and you get less conscious resistance because people listen to the animal where they wouldn't listen to a patient vignette.
That's so true.
So I was in the Vatican helping a priest set up a rehab for Mother Teresa, drug rehab. And we went to this old library, and you had to sign all these documents to be able to get in, show your passport. And they only left me in an area where I could sit and just maybe read a couple of encyclopedias. So I was thumbing through an encyclopedia while Father Angelo was going through some ancient manuscript that he needed to look at. And I saw in the encyclopedia, it was like from the 1800s, that originally the Eastern Orthodox said there were 12 magi, and the Latin Church said there were 9. And I thought, wow, that's remarkable. Can you imagine if each one had at least one servant and one pack animal, how big that caravan would be? It'd be like 36 camels, all these people. And if it arrived in Jerusalem, it would have created quite a stir.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to write a little short story for my kids and include the 12 magi. I had the names of the magi. And little by little, it kept transforming. And then this character, Jamil, the hero in the story, really, or the person who undergoes the most character transformation, emerged. And I finally had a story that I liked, and I presented it to my previous publishing companies. I had already done another book with Scott DeGarmo, who was the head of Success Magazine. He was the editor of Success Magazine. And we did a book on network marketing and relationships. And none of my publishing companies wanted a Christmas story that involved Jesus and the Magi.
Yeah.
They wanted unusual relationships or unusual traditions in a novel. So I put it aside, and then I started studying a little more theology. I got deeper into my prayer life, and went back and became a sleep medicine specialist after I got the leg amputated, which is not a big deal. It just means I have a leg up on you.
Yes.
So
no one's allowed to feel bad. Not after that joke.
No, absolutely not. So I eventually decided I would rewrite it because I took a theology course, and one of the things we covered were virtue. And I wanted to present a way to explain the virtue in the middle of the story and use it as kind of a primer, and also a primer for how character transformation takes place. And little by little, it transformed into the current book. And then nobody would publish it. So I was mentioning it to Mark Victor Hansen.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll publish it. Let's get this project done. So he did the quote on the front cover.
Yep. Says, a wondrous, imaginative story of the birth of Christ as seen through the eyes of a young camel. Truly magnificent. And if you guys don't know Mark was on the podcast previously, but he is not only a publisher now, but he also is the #1 New York Times Chicken Soup for the Soul curator of all of those things that I always call my first Bible, because that is what they were to me.
They were amazing. They were just wonderful stories.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. And then Yeah, go ahead.
Keep going. I was just going to say there's so many elements of curiosity connected to your storyline and your testimony that was now interweaved to this new piece that was evolved. And I think a lot of times people will create anything. It doesn't have to be a book. It could be anything that they then feel like, oh, I've evolved, so it has to stay back there, like in our past, or a new work has to be done. But like, having a new creation, that's what's so beautiful about the Lord, is like, he's like, no, what I gave you in seed form was good. I've just needed you to water it a little bit more. I needed to water you a little bit more for the fullness of the message to come to light.
Right. I was in a church praying before a tabernacle, and I got the inkling that there was something wrong with this section, and he told me, just switch them to virtues, make each one represent a virtue. And then I went back in and reworked that, and that's how it happened. And then Les Brown did the quote on the back of the cover.
He sure did.
Yeah.
It says, an enchanting fable of self-discovery, powerful, delightful, and uplifting. The last gift of the Magi is destined to become a Christmas classic. Its success will be measured in how many souls it brings to Jesus. And everyone knows Les Brown, but if you don't, he is the leading motivational speaker and, of course, the author of You've Gotta Be Hungry. Yeah. I'm so hungry.
So I realized at that point that the book could be used for evangelization, because really it's bringing people to Jesus. Yeah. And now I just finished the sequel called The Return of the Cloth, and that's going to come out around the first of the year. And it takes place 33 years later in Jerusalem.
Of course. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited.
What I decided to do there was I decided to take and teach the principles that were in the book flawless, which was, psychobabble, basically. It was a self-help book based on psychology, but I wanted to be able, because I used to practice psychiatry.
Right.
Now I'm a sleep specialist. And I wanted to be able to teach those principles, so I decided I'd do it a little bit more in depth in the second book.
Which I think is really interesting, like, again, connected to your testimony. Without psychiatry and psychology, you can't really know how to even really attune to sleep therapy, right? Or the sleep medicine, because it's all interwoven. And a lot of times we think that we just have a sleep agent issue or something inside of our body is not correct, right? And then to be able to take that, and now you're not only gifting it to our lineage, our generations to come through this camel story, through this evolution, and this, we were talking pre-roll here about how amazing this would be as an animation video. A big reel, a big movie screen debut I see in the future. And so if anybody has any contacts, please reach out to us. We'd love to see this on the big screen, but it's also affecting our generation and the generation to come. And we know that when we know Jesus psychologically and physiologically, all these things start to evolve to make more sense and to be more like our Creator, which has peace connected to it. I sleep better knowing God than I did way before I knew Him.